I still think Joe Biden is fit to serve.
Really?
Yeah.
She was rated more left than Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders is like for Medicare for all. Kamala Harris has never endorsed such systems.
Your previous guest, Harry Sisson, said something that wasn't true. He said that she was not for Medicare for all. She was.
But Joe Biden never did. Kamala Harris never did. She was not the border czar.
Quote, March 24th, 2021, I've asked her, the VP, today.
Is it a bullet? Is it a shard? What's the hospital record?
The Democrats are trying to downplay the very near, within a hair's breadth, assassination.
Welcome back to Rattlesnake TV, guys. In this video, we're going to be reviewing some very important key moments from the recent debate on Piers Morgan, where Michael Knowles spanks the absolute shite out of some Democrats regarding the border, the Trump shooting, and Kamala Harris. Lots of great work done here by Michael, so let's get into the first bit where little Harry Sisson gives his 2 cents worth, which Michael Knowles swiftly dismantles.
Harry, I want to start by playing a little clip of you last time you appeared on my show. Who do you think the 2 nominees will be in the end, and who will win?
Yeah, it's going to be Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, and then Joe Biden's going to win. And Pierce, I'd love to chat with you after the election.
You've made a few dollars, Harry, so why don't we have a little wager? $10,000 to a charity of your choice. I say Biden can't possibly win. You think he can?
I mean, I personally don't bet on politics. I'm happy to have another bet to do something with charity. We can do something, absolutely no problem.
But you wouldn't put your money where your mouth is on Biden, then?
I don't bet on politics.
Well, I saved you $10,000 there, Harry, with your refusal to accept the bet, obviously. Welcome to back to Uncensored. I mean, you were completely wrong. Not only did Biden not stay in the race, but he certainly won't be president again. So do you accept you were completely wrong?
Yeah, I think I was going based off of publicly available information. All of the information available was that Joe Biden was staying in. He consistently told reporters he was staying in. He said, I'm the guy. And then he huddled with advisors in Delaware, saw the data, said it wasn't looking good, and made the honorable decision to bow out.
But with respect, why would a young, dynamic guy like you, how old are you?
21.
You're 21, so you're 60 years younger than Joe Biden.
That's right.
Right, it was blatantly obvious to everybody that Biden was done, especially after the debate. Why would you continue to pretend that he wasn't?
Because I look at the record, I'm always of the view that achievements in policy matters more than like this talk we have in the media of, oh, Biden's this, oh, Biden's that. I've met the man as well. I've talked to him. He was fantastic. He was sharp. I had questions.
When was that?
That was in May.
He was sharp?
Yeah.
How sharp?
Very sharp. He answered
it was around that time he was
full.
falling off stages, he was face planting, he was tumbling
face planting. I mean,
tumbling
I feel like
down the steps of Air Force One, falling off bicycles. He was saying all sorts of gobbledygook in statements which the White House had to rewind. So how sharp was he?
I mean, he was great. I gave him questions he didn't have beforehand. He answered them in depth, and we had a conversation after the cameras were turned off. I had no problems then. I had no problems now. I still think Joe Biden is fit to serve. If he were the candidate, I'd still think he's fit to serve.
Really?
Yeah.
My mother, who's just turned 80, very youthful, glamorous 80, I might add, but she messaged me yesterday saying, what do you think of Kamala Harris? She seems to have added a lot of energy to this race, which I thought was a really interesting observation. Do you believe, though, that once that honeymoon period inevitably quietens down and there's a more forensic analysis of her record, do you worry that she is too far left in her record to actually avoid Trump stomping all over her politically?
Not at all. I think that the idea that she's just like this progressive liberal who only sides with progressives and doesn't reach across the aisle is nonsense. I mean, she's been part of the Biden administration.
She was rated more left than Bernie Sanders.
I mean, I think that if we actually look at the policy on an individual level, that's not the case. Bernie Sanders is like for Medicare for all. Kamala Harris has never endorsed such system. So I think we actually have to look at the policy, and that tells a different story. But her record is certainly not a progressive one in the sense that it's like a Bernie Sanders kind of policy. She was a district attorney, a prosecutor. She sent people to jail. She's definitionally in favor of the rule of law.
She also wanted to defund the police. That's not great.
She's never come out and said, let's defund the police.
She effectively did.
Well, effectively and saying are two different things.
Michael Knowles, there's no doubt the dynamic of this race has changed. Do you think it's going to change the result?
I don't think so. I don't think you're really seeing that in the polls. In the polls, Trump is still looking pretty good, especially in the swing states, and especially when you consider the distinction between the Electoral College and the popular vote. I think this is why you have some leading Democrats who are saying that they actually don't want to be the vice president. They don't want to be the running mate. They don't really want to challenge Kamala. And so there is some new energy. I totally agree with that. But Kamala has some major vulnerabilities here. As you pointed out, Piers, in the previous segment, Kamala was the most liberal member of the Senate when she was there. Your previous guest, Harry Sisson, said something that wasn't true. He said that she was not for Medicare for all. She was. You can see it on her Medium blog page from 2019, My Plan for Medicare for All. And she was far to the left on so many other issues.
So obviously we don't take the opinions of a 21-year-old TikToker who's been wrong about literally everything seriously. But the question is, why is he the representative of the Democrats on Piers Morgan? Surely he can get somebody on who isn't obviously a complete joke to give their piece. Look at what Harry said before the presidential debate.
You know, all of these Trump supporters are going to be incredibly disappointed tomorrow night when Donald Trump and Joe Biden debate, because they view Donald Trump as a god and they think that Joe Biden is sleepy. But that's not reality. What is reality is that Donald Trump has not been doing any debate prep. He's not preparing at all, whereas Joe Biden has been doing debate prep for the past 7 days. And he's been having mock debates every single day and reviewing policy and all that stuff. So what's actually going to happen is that Joe Biden's going to get up on that debate stage and slap Donald Trump around for 90 minutes. And then all of these Trump supporters are going to be incredibly sad over his performance. They'll never admit this, but they know it's true.
That aged like absolute milk. And is this really the state of the Democratic voice? Well, actually, it kind of does make sense for the Democrats to have this little girl as their ambassador, because Kamala Harris is switching up her tactics, which is extremely alarming. You see, a few weeks ago, I said that if Kamala Harris does become the nominee, then she would maybe switch up her tactics from the whole cackling thing to being a bit more stoic and respectable and presidential. But it looks like I was wrong about that. And the truth is so much worse. It now looks like Kamala is adopting what is called being brat.
Screw you with you, boy! Oh my God! You got right on my head! I'm not a freaking fish! I don't need to swim!
Which is a term that I've just learnt about, and now unfortunately you have to learn about it too.
Is Kamala Harris brat? According to singer Charlie XCX, yep, she has Charlie XCX explained a little bit about what brat is. You are just that girl who is a little messy and maybe says dumb things sometimes, who feels herself but then also maybe has a breakdown but parties through it. It is honest, blunt, and a little bit volatile. That's brat.
Think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
Kamala is brat. And this is in reference to her album. It's called Brat. Kamala has branded her Kamala HQ Twitter page with the same aesthetic.
I am supposed to say, that's brat. And for those who are not in the know the way I am, that is a cool thing. It has a color. Chartreuse is the color. And Kamala Harris has adopted that for whatever social media page that is. But I have brought some notes because I knew you would want a definition. Okay, here we go. Charlie XCX, who I do know, quote, brat, you're just that girl who is a little messy and likes to party and maybe says some dumb things sometimes, end quote.
Kamala Harris is brat.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
This is absolutely horrifying. Just when we thought that Kamala Harris could not get any more insufferable, they go right ahead and do this.
You exist in the context.
How desperate are they, and just how embarrassing. This is a candidate for the President of the United States that we're talking about. And if it was a teenage girl who was adopting this whole brat thing, it would be concerning because it's basically about being useless and stupid and self-obsessed and ditzy. But it's not a teenage girl. It's the Democratic nominee. So now let's get back into the debate, guys, where Michael Knowles can hopefully restore a little bit of our faith in humanity when he comes in with the receipts.
The other big vulnerability is that though the Democrats want to deny it now, in March of 2021, President Biden said that Kamala Harris was going to be in charge of the border policy. So, they're trying to change their news stories on it. But he said, I'm putting her in the lead of immigration. That has been the most monumental failure of the Biden administration, and it ranks toward the top of people's issues.
Someone did a big mashup, and it had all the liberal commentators and anchors at CNN, MSNBC, and so on, all denying yesterday that she'd ever been called the border czar, and then someone had clipped up evidence that their own networks had indeed called her the border czar. And I think that's a really significant debate to be had, because it's indisputable that she was depicted that way, and there's no doubt if you then accept that she was the border czar, that her management of the border as the czar has been a complete and utter disaster.
Of course. Piers, I actually have Biden's exact words. I just finished broadcasting my own show, and I even second-guessed myself. I said, oh, maybe I misunderstood. I seem to recall every news organization reporting this, but maybe I was wrong. No, he said on March 24th, I have asked her, the VP today, to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle, and the countries that are going to need help in stemming the movement of so many folks, stemming the migration to our southern border. It's not her full responsibility and job, but she's leading the effort. And he even turns to her, he says, Madam Vice President, thank you. I gave you a tough job. So it is a tough job. She totally failed, and they got to answer for it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt she was put in charge of solving the border crisis. We've just heard it from Biden's own voice. Why are people on the left trying to deny that?
We're not trying to deny anything. We have a prosecutor against a predator, and now the oldest person to ever run for president, Donald Trump, who, by the way, did not do a 180 after surviving the assassination attempt. He did a 360. He's exactly the same person he was. You're talking about Axios. Axios referred to her as the border czar, and then Axios later corrected itself yesterday.
Before we get on to the next part, guys, if you don't mind smashing that like button and subscribing to the channel if you're getting value, that would be greatly appreciated. And also, check out the reality-based merch line. You can see my Based and Blessed shirt here, one of my favorite designs. We've got new designs coming out all the time, including our fresh new female designs. So if you are one of the many women who watches Rattlesnake TV, or if you have a based lady in your life and you would like to get her the most based gift that you can possibly give her, then head to the Reality Based store today, guys. You can shop that catalog just below this video. The links will be at the top of the comments and in the bio. And also, it is my personal brand, so if you do buy anything from the Reality Based store, then it helps to keep me independent and protects me from big tech censorship. Let's get back to the video.
Now, Wajahat, we've done a bit of research while we've been on air, because you were very clear that people on the left had not said Kamala was the border czar and are now trying to wriggle off the hook. So we've got a little mashup which Newsbusters had prepared for the delectation of the world. Let's take a look.
Border czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
People are going to have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. You know, she was the border czar.
Calling her sort of the border czar, which wasn't necessarily the case.
So the border, if they weren't planning to address it in a major way, do not make her your border czar. She met with some of the Northern Triangle countries, but nothing has effectively changed.
Now, Wajahat, would you like to review your emphatic denial that ever happened?
Last time I checked, I don't think I talked about the border czar. I don't think you showed a single clip of President Biden calling her a border czar. I don't think you showed a single clip of Kamala Harris.
You didn't qualify. You said it was only Axios. You said only Axios.
No, yesterday.
There we have every major network in
Use
America
that phrase.
saying one thing and they're trying to deny it. They all called her the border czar. And the reason they all want to try and deny it now is because they realize it's incredibly damaging to Kamala Harris if it is seen by the American people that she was indeed in charge of sorting out the border problem and presided over a complete disaster. So it's actually a critical thing here, and I'm bemused why the media is trying to pretend they didn't say what they said. All of them.
Well, two things real quick. When you were talking about that one publication yesterday that flip-flopped, I gave you the name, it's Axios that flip-flopped.
Yeah.
And the media, like you said, which is not trusted by either... Wait. The media that is not trusted by either the liberals or Republicans said a lot of stuff, and they're the ones calling her the border czar, but Joe Biden never did. Kamala Harris never did. She was not the border czar. She had a responsibility to talk to these countries, specifically the Central American countries, to see if they can engage in policy to reduce the flow of migrants. But facts matter. Right now, the lowest crossing of migrants, even lower than Trump.
Hang on, Wajahat. Hang on. Facts do matter. So, Michael, can you, for the benefit of Wajahat, who clearly wasn't listening to you earlier, can you repeat what Joe Biden said about Kamala Harris in relation to her job?
I'll add in another line, too, which I excluded earlier. Wajahat, you just said that Biden never made her the border czar or put her in charge of the border. Quote, March 24th, 2021, I've asked her, the VP today, to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle, and the countries that help are going to need help in stemming the movement of many folks, stemming the migration to our southern border. It's not her full responsibility and job, but she's leading the effort. When she speaks for me. He imbues her with presidential authority, and then he turns to her, Madam Vice President, thank you, I gave you a tough job. Wajahat, what about that is confusing?
Okay.
No, I can understand English. I was an English major.
Throw your hands up and admit you were wrong.
No, I know that you guys are doing the RNC's work for them. I know you're trying to help Trump, who is struggling right now.
Facts matter, you said.
No,
facts matter.
You said you all are saying that she's the border czar, and I have ears, and I heard that, and she is not the border czar. She literally was given that responsibility. She's not the border czar.
So Kamala Harris, as much as they want to hide from it, was in fact given the responsibility of managing the border crisis, which she obviously failed miserable at. And that whole situation and the messaging is just a complete pile of crap, because the United States could have that problem fixed easily. They have the biggest military in the world, and they have the most advanced technology in the world. So even if there is one person coming across the border illegally, it is by design. Here's what she had to say about her role at the border during an interview.
I've been working on this issue for a very long time. The reason that I am in Guatemala is to address the reasons people leave home, flee. Knowing that the people who are here for generations, or if we know the history of Guatemala for centuries, they want to stay. They don't want to leave, but they need opportunity. They need assistance. They need support.
But Americans don't see.
And we have the ability to give them that.
Yeah, Americans don't see a lot of that on a daily basis. What they do see at their own border, children being lowered over fences, children coming in with, phone numbers stenciled on their hand.
Yeah.
And so the question has come up, and you heard it here, and you'll hear it again, I'm sure. It's why not visit the border? Why not see what Americans are seeing in this crisis?
Well, we are going to the border. We have to deal with what's happening at the border. There's no question about that. That's not a debatable point. But we have to understand that there's a reason people are arriving at our border, and ask what is that reason, and then identify the problem so we can fix it.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
I'm here in Guatemala today. At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't.
Yeah, no, sorry. I don't really think that people in America care about why the Guatemalans want to come to America, because most of the world wants to come to America. So those trips are basically just pointless virtue signals. What the people care about is that the border is secured from illegal aliens coming in, criminals coming in, and mother loads of fentanyl to kill the population, which will continue to obviously happen if she, or any other Democrat for that matter, is elected. On to the next part.
It's going to be, I would imagine, it's going to be a closer race than it could have been. Donald Trump, as we've heard from other guests today, one of his biggest opponents is himself and his mouth. How careful does he have to be, do you think, in terms of how he talks to Kamala Harris? Particularly if, for example, they do get it on a debate stage in September. Because if we thought the last debate was electric and consequential in the way it went down, you can only imagine how big it's going to be with Donald Trump and Kamala Harris standing there for 90 minutes. So how careful does he have to be?
Trump needs to change the way that he speaks based on whether he's speaking to a man or a woman. Of course, this is true. Trump knows this. He ran against a woman in 2016, and he beat a woman in 2016. And Republicans, unlike our Democrat friends, do know the difference between men and women. So, of course, he's going to have to use different rhetoric. But I'm not all concerned about it. I think he's going to do just fine. When they tried to hammer him on rude language to women in 2016, of course, he said, I only use that language about Rosie O'Donnell, and he sort of laughed it off, and it seemed to work out just fine. Meanwhile, you're going to hear the rhetoric of Kamala Harris. She's going to, it seems, continue this campaign theme that Trump is an existential threat to democracy that Biden has been pushing. That, of course, established the premise that would justify the assassination attempt. So I think that's perilous rhetorical ground for the Democrats. And then you're going to hear a lot of vague rhetoric. The famous line from Kamala, the only one we hear repeated over and over, is that she wants to imagine what can be unburdened by what has been. You saw in Kamala's first campaign commercial, it's all just about freedom in the abstract. Yes, she runs on abortion. Yes, she runs on guns, issues that she can always harp on in the future. But she doesn't run on anything else that is specific, because her record on the economy, on her administration's record on national security, on the border, on foreign affairs, it's so dismal. She doesn't seem to have a vision that resonates with people. That's why when she ran for president, she had to get out of the race before the first primary.
In response to your question, Donald Trump is a 78-year-old man. He will not change. We have covered him for 9 years. He will not change. He survived an assassination attempt. He did not change. Even at the RNC, he could not stay disciplined. If I'm Republicans, I'm very worried, because I believe Donald Trump has peaked. He survived the assassination attempt. He had that heroic photo. He had the bandage on the ear. He had the whole world behind him at the RNC. He coronated, J.D. Vance as the VP. You had the whole RNC convention, and all of that is now gone. All of that is deflated. And also, he has a terrible track record because, unlike 2016, he takes credit for overturning Roe v. Wade. And he has appointed J.D. Vance, who, as your last guest said, is attacking women for being mean, childless cat ladies, for being miserable. I'm telling you that women are paying attention, to the point that even Jennifer Aniston, yes, Rachel herself, who doesn't get involved in politics, was horrified yesterday and posted that clip of J.D. Vance. The attack on women, the attack on women's rights, the fact that now a jury of his peers has said that he is liable for rape against E. Jean Carroll and defamation, and he's a criminal convict, and the fact he's a fraudster. He owes New York over $400 million. He's on parole. He can't vote in Florida. And the fact that there's misogynist attacks for the last 3 days. I'm telling you, Pierce, in America, women, even independents, Republican women, are horrified by this. This is the man who said he grabs women by the pee and, oh, it's just locker room talk. It's 2024. I'm telling you, a lot of women were pissed, and I've said this before, I'll say it again. Republican Party have underestimated the righteous rage of women, and I believe women have remembered, and I believe women and young people in particular will come after Donald Trump and support Kamala Harris. He will not change. They're stuck with him.
Trump hasn't changed? Okay, good. He's coming in with the presupposition there that people actually want Trump to change. I think that a lot of people like the fact that Trump says what's on everybody's mind.
Did you use that $916 million loss to avoid paying personal federal income taxes?
Of course I do. Of course I do. And so do all of her donors, or most of her donors. I know many of her donors. Her donors took massive tax write-offs.
So have you not paid personal federal income taxes?
A lot of my write-off was depreciation and other things that Hillary, as a senator, allowed. And she'll always allow it because the people that give her all this money, they want it. That's why.
And I believe that thinking people just see straight through all of the lawfare. And obviously, with the recent assassination attempt, they see a lot of character in him. And on the point of being nice, I mean, imagine going through what Trump just went through and then having people come at you for not being nice. One might be able to argue that the other side hasn't exactly been very nice to him. I mean, after that assassination attempt, Donald Trump had every right to go absolutely scorched earth on all of his political opponents and the media who have been scolding him for years and turning up the political temperature. And also, with all of the question marks and inconsistencies regarding what actually happened that day, he would be well within his rights to, let's just say, engage in a more robust line of questioning as to what the hell happened. And if he did this, he could easily turn up the temperature even further than it already is. But he didn't. To many people's surprise, he was very stoic and measured about it.
As you already know, the assassin's bullet came within a quarter of an inch of taking my life. So many people have asked me, what happened? Tell us what happened, please. And therefore, I will tell you exactly what happened. And you'll never hear it from me a second time because it's actually too painful to tell.
And for those who doubted his character beforehand but are still honest, they'll be able to look at that and say, this is a man at the very least who has some serious leadership qualities. But to the Democrats' point, he is correct in that there are a lot of women in America who vote. And there are a lot of women and sissy men like little Harry Sisson who will vote against him because he doesn't make them feel nice. So it'll be very interesting to see what Trump does moving forward. How will he conduct himself in his debates, etc., against Kamala and in his rallies in general? The fake news media is going to have an absolute field day with trying to call him a misogynist. So we will see how that one plays out. Now on to the last part where they discuss the Donald Trump shooting, where Michael Knowles once again absolutely cooks this man.
Wajahat, your response to what happened to Donald Trump, putting aside whether you like him or not, we know where you sit with him personally, it does seem to have been a quite spectacular failure by the Secret Service to protect someone who'd been president of the United States.
I think we can all agree that we've never seen anything like that before, all of it. We need more information, specifically how come they didn't know about the shooter, how come after he was tagged about 90 seconds before the shooting by the crowd, how come he wasn't stopped, how come, you know, you and I have seen these episodes where Secret Service protect individuals, you know, how come they didn't just whisk him away? He got back up during an active shooting for that photo. That itself, honestly, when I was watching them, like, why? What are they doing? And then also, as of yesterday, I think the American people deserve to know more information about what happened. Christopher Wray of the FBI said, we don't know if a bullet hit him or if it was a shard. Is it a bullet? Is it a shard? What's the hospital records? I think Donald Trump should release the hospital records from that night. We don't trust Ronnie Jackson or Ronnie Johnson, whatever he calls him, his doctor, who's no longer a doctor. He said, oh, no, I treated him. Give us the hospital records. What's the treatment? What's the diagnosis? What's the injury? How's he healing? Give us more information and do more of an investigation as to how the Secret Service, especially that team at that time, bungled it up from before to the shooting to after the shooting. We deserve more information.
I mean, Michael Knowles, there was a strange survey came out from YouGov, a poll, saying that 42% of Democrats blame Donald Trump and the Republicans for the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, which just seemed to me to be a completely absurd finding.
Of course they do, because Joe Biden and all of the Democrat leadership have established that premise. Joe Biden's entire campaign was predicated on Donald Trump posing an existential threat to democracy and Donald Trump following in the footsteps of Adolf Hitler, which he said in many ways, many times. And so if those two things are true, they're not true, obviously, like so many things that Biden says, but if those things were true, then that would justify the assassination of Donald Trump, unless you think that we ought to play soft with Hitler or with existential threats to our country. So I'm not surprised that some 40% of Americans would blame the man who was almost murdered. I also don't stay up at night wondering the answer to the questions of this mythical shard or any other ways that the Democrats are trying to downplay the very near, within a hair's breadth, assassination of Donald Trump. Only did not occur because at the last second he turned his head about 20 degrees. I know that it wasn't a shard from a teleprompter, for instance, because we have photographs from behind of the two teleprompters looking just fine after the bullet went through Trump's ear. As to why he wasn't immediately whisked off stage, I wonder why he wasn't held back in the holding room when they saw the shooter walking around a long while before the speech. But me, I'm a, just a regular Joe. When I go to a speaking event, they'll sometimes hold me back. I'm not the president of the United States. So that needs an answer. But then when he went down after having been shot, the reason they didn't pull him off is he went down, and he's a pretty big guy. We were hearing earlier that some of these agents couldn't even cover up to his chest. And then Trump himself said, hold on, let me get my shoe on. And he stood up there and he reassured the crowd, which demonstrated incredible political leadership, showed courage literally under fire. And then they got him off stage quickly after that. The answers that need to be given here are not how Donald Trump showed such immense courage and how this iconic photograph of political bravery was taken. The real questions are, why was Donald Trump not given sufficient security resources? Why did the Secret Service lie about the requests from the Trump campaign to get sufficient security resources? And how far up does this go? Sure, both parties now want to fire the Secret Service director, and she resigned, finally, under duress. But what about her boss, Alejandro Mayorkas, the DHS secretary? What about his boss, Joe Biden? How on earth is the most threatened man on planet Earth, Donald Trump, even needing to ask for additional security? And how on earth could it have been denied?
It really did not take long for these people to try and switch the framing of the narrative, did it? What really happened to the ear? Was it a shard or was it a bullet? Because honestly, that changes everything. If the bullet was actually half a meter away from his head rather than actually slicing his ear open, then we're having a very different conversation. And Donald Trump with the whole ear thing, really trying to make the most of this situation. That is the reaction, and that is the brain parasite that we talk about. I mean, I don't need to even stress this to you guys, but just imagine if that were Joe Biden or Kamala Harris who that happened to. Imagine the outcry from liberals and conservatives for that matter. But because it happened to Donald Trump, they can't just take this time to acknowledge that it was a moment that showed immense character and bravery and leadership. Instead, they're just trying to find any reason where they can just go back to the good old days where everyone was just saying Orange Man bad. Anyways, great job by Michael Knowles there to bring it back to the issue at hand, which is how the hell was this allowed to happen? So guys, make sure to check out the reality-based merch line. It is all below for your perusal. You can find the links at the top of the comments and in the description. If you guys would like to find my other links for the socials and what have you, they'll be there as well. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, right here. If you'd like to watch another one, right here. Till next time, I'm Jake. This is RattlesnakeTV, keeping you armed and dangerous.